you see what I mean. But, of course, we have now.
Do you know where it came from?
I do. Cesspit, east end of the chapel, Lincoln's Inn.
You're kidding. Well, that's there.
Yeah.
30 metres away from where we got these whacking great foundations of a building which I am more convinced than ever must be medieval.
Now, I'm happy to concede that even though we've got a gap in this trench between 1250 and 1450, there must have been people here in this time. That jug didn't walk here on its own, you know.
How rare is that?
Complete, it's really rare. There's maybe a dozen of them known, I suspect, if that.
I've got to do this.
Don't drop it.
I've just got to pick it up.
And to think that the evidence was staring us in the face all along. While the jug proves that people were living here throughout the Middle Ages, it still doesn't tell us when Phil's building itself was put up.
Yeah, this is where we want the pot.
And he's only got a few hours left to find out.
And this, of course, is where we're getting diddly squat. Yeah.
And time is also running out over in Lincoln's Inn Fields. Our second trench there has revealed, no, not Saxons, but a huge Second World War air raid shelter.
Oh, that's a big old, isn't it?
Very posh looking air raid shelter, isn't it?
It's very posh. I mean, 3 chambers.
Oh, yeah, very
and we
posh.
also have electricity, where Dave's digging now. And we have water.
That's even posher.
I know.
What on earth are we going to dig up next?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, Tony. Don't dig up our lawn again, for God's sake.
If I were a betting man, I'd want to cut my losses and run. But Hedley Swain is a man who just doesn't give up.
He looks pissed off, doesn't he?
Can he pull it off? Will he hit Saxon before the end of the day? In a word, no.
Basically, a big quarry pit filled with domestic rubbish that's masking what we want to get to. So it takes away the possibility of getting Saxon, and we haven't found a single sherd or anything that we might date to the Middle Saxon. So
Makes
I
that
think
bit
it's
my
reasonable
garden
to
fire
say
there, I reckon.
we haven't got London Wick this far over.
If it was here, the quarry pit would have erased all traces of Saxon London. But sometimes on Time Team, you just have to take a gamble. Well, I'm not sure how we're going to explain all this to the park wardens.
Digging up
But
again.
it's not all bad news. The quarry pit's thrown up a lot of medieval tile.
They have no turf left.
The irony being that this quarry pit could have been used to make tiles for the medieval inn, the reason why we came here in the first place.
There's plenty of toil, isn't there?
Back at the inn, time's running out. Phil's trying desperately to find out if his building could be the medieval hall.
There you go, pot.
What you got, mate?
Look at this, got a bit of a handle.
Oh, look at
Got
that.
a bit of
Let's have
handle,
a little look, shall we? Oh.
Hello.
Oh, could do with cleaning it up, mate.
Comes out of the ground and you want it in pristine condition.
Well, you know,
Ah, yeah.
it's covered in mud, isn't
Call
it?
yourself an expert.
That's what you tell him, farmman.
Oh, I like that.
Wow.
Right, that is a bit of South Hertfordshire grey work. Late 12th to 14th.
Isn't it?
You've hit pay dirt, mate.
God, yes.
At last, this is the news we've been hoping for. The medieval pottery found right underneath the wall's foundation means it must have been put up in the 13th century, when Ralph, Bishop of Chichester, had his magnificent London home here. Phil, 3 days ago, I said we were looking for a 13th century townhouse, the origins of everything that surrounds us now, and that the likelihood was that it was in this courtyard. Have you found it for us?
Absolutely, Tony. That slot down there is the foundation trench of what I believe is the earliest stone-built building on the site. I can quite believe that it goes back to the 13th century, and I can be absolutely certain that it was gone by 1500.
Can you tell what kind of building it was, though?
It was a massive building. We know that there is no brick in the construction of it. We've got beautiful painted window glass. We've got green sand mouldings would have gone around the windows and the doors.
Helen, how does that work for you as far as the history is concerned?
When you take into account its
What's that weird woman?
size and its quality, and above all its
Oh,
date,
take no
it
advice
has
of her,
got to be
Tony.
the Great Hall, the predecessor of our old hall there.
We don't know how
That's
to
built
do our nails
1492.
properly.
This was pulled down soon after. It's got to be it.
Pedley, you were supposed to be our boss, but you weren't interested in any of this at all. You went herring off into Lincoln's Inn Fields hunting for Saxons. Did you find any?
I was fascinated what was going on here. It was in very safe hands. We found some fascinating archaeology over there, including possibly something to do with the Great Fire. If I'm honest, though, we didn't find Middle Saxon London. But do you know what? About 10 minutes ago, at the bottom of that trench, our first bit of Middle Saxon pottery from this part of London.
That's very ironic, but does it actually tell us much?
Not a lot, but...
Well, that's a lot of good,
start.
isn't it? I watched all this and you haven't told me nothing, man. Well,
3 days ago, we set ourselves
that's
an
a big
ambitious
build, that's
target.
but all we know.
Ralph Neville's grand medieval townhouse, the place which helped give
They ain't
birth
got no
to
timber
London's
structure.
leading community. And against all the odds, we think we found part of it, the 13th century Great Hall. Made of stone and finished with plaster and painted glass, it certainly fits the contemporary account of a noble palace fit for a bishop.
Ooh, very posh.
We've also uncovered so much more about London along the way. From the first piece of Saxon pottery ever
That's
found
posh
in this
pottery.
area,
Oh, but some
and over in the
flowers, yeah.
fields, remains from two of the most destructive periods in London's history, the Great Fire and the Blitz. Not bad for a dig where we didn't know if we'd find